Hi, everyone. My name is Naila, and I am a student here at Shippensburg University, located in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. I'm doing a presentation for Dr. Benbow's class. It is the 51101 Human Behavior in the Social Environment 2. And this presentation is regarding a topic that I hold dear to me. I witness it on a daily basis. When I was a teenager, I actually suffered from it at one point, and I moved beyond that, and I'm very proud. But, not to ramble, I just wanted to give a quick little synopsis. And without further ado, let's begin the presentation. Mm. Okay, so my presentation is on the impact of food deserts created by, again, myself. So I know some of you might have heard of the term food desert, and then I also know that there are some of you who have not heard of the term, but I'm going to define it regardless. A food desert is an area with limited access to affordable and nutritious food, often found in low-income communities. Food deserts are defined by both low income and limited access to healthy food retail. Food deserts are characterized by poor access to healthy and affordable food. It may contribute to social and spatial disparities in diet and diet-related health outcomes. However, the extent to which food exists is debated. Urban areas are considered food deserts if they have substantial numbers of residents at 500 or 33% of the population. Live, that's a minimum. Um, that means they have to live more than a mile from a supermarket. For rural areas, this threshold is 10 miles. So just to go backwards, if if at least 500 or 33% of the population in urban areas don't live if they live more than a mile from the supermarket, more than a mile from the supermarket, or rural areas in the threshold are 10 miles from a supermarket, they qualify as living in a food desert. Now, are there different types of food deserts? Technically, no, but basically, yes. There are food swamps, and that is when people live in an area that has access to healthy options like fruit and vegetables, but they are flooded with less nutritious alternatives like fast food restaurants, such as you see on the screen, McDonald's, Taco Bell, whatever grinder is. The problem is also that also flooded with convenience stores that sell junk food and soft drinks, such as sodas. The other type is food insecurity. Food insecurity is defined as a lack of consistent access to enough food for a healthy, active life. Food insecurity is a much broader, more complex topic than food deserts alone, but for the sake of this presentation, we are mainly going to focus on food deserts itself, and then we will briefly talk about food insecurity. Now, the difference is between food deserts, there's two. There's rural and there's urban. In urban food deserts, they often lack they often feature a lack of grocery stores within a reasonable distance, while rural food deserts typically struggle with longer distances to stores, limited transportation, and lower income. There are approximately, as of 2024, approximately 19 million Americans, or about 6% of the population, that live in food deserts, according to the Humane League. I wish I could zoom in so I could like really show you the maps that I have here, but I'll just explain the numbers so that you don't have to squint your eyes or anything. In the top left, you'll see a map of the United States. This is also a map of food deserts. Um, Light green, so these areas right here, light green areas, means that there are 0 to 13% of the population living with food insecurity. And then in the darker green areas here, that means that that is a 39.1 to a 52% of the population living with food insecurities. Now, this really, really dark green is almost black, but it's really dark green. You don't see that on the map here, but there are a few dark green areas. I'm sorry, I should have said that the dark green areas like this, that means that is 26.1 to 39.0% of people living with food insecurities. Now, more closer to home, we have Pennsylvania down here in the bottom right. Some areas are darker than others. In Dauphin County, which is where Harrisburg, the capital, is located, um, that is a 13% of people living with food insecurities. 41% of the Dauphin County population does not qualify for SNAP benefits, while 59% of the population does qualify for the SNAP benefits. And we'll talk about SNAP later. But moving forward, we're going to talk about what has caused the food deserts in the first place, which is redlining. Historical disinvestments in low-income and Black neighborhoods often stem from redlining and other discriminatory practices. It has created lasting negative impacts, including lower property values, limited access to capital, and reduced opportunities for wealth accumulation. Again, I know some of you have heard of the term redlining, but I know some of you haven't. Redlining is the discriminatory practice of denying services like loans and insurance to residents of certain neighborhoods, often based on racial or ethnic compositions. Redlining in the context of retail operations, such as supermarkets, is another form of institutionalized racism that can be defined as redlining, where chain supermarkets close down, relocate to suburban areas, or don't open new stores at all in urban areas, not only due to discriminatory reasons, but also as a result of perceived urban or logistical obstacles. Now, another thing that contributes to residing in food deserts and suffering from food deserts alone, which also goes hand in hand with redlining, is the lack of reliable transportation. In the past, federal transportation investments also reinforced residential segregation, facilitating automobile access among residents of the growing, predominantly white suburbs while constructing inner-city highways that cut through existing neighborhoods, often creating physical barriers that blocked Black communities' access to downtown areas and other centers of economic opportunity. Currently, about 2.3 million, or 2.2% of households in the US, live more than a mile from a supermarket and do not have access to a vehicle. For those households, lack of transportation possess a likely barrier to accessing affordable and nutritious food. Now, here I have a brief video of a woman who lives in an area that has been redlined.
This is Toni Lawson. She lives in the southeast part of Washington, D.C., a predominantly poor neighborhood.
Got the bag.
Your bag?
Yeah, the
You
shopping
want to
bag.
go grab it?
Yeah, because I don't have any money to buy bags.
If, like Toni, you live in a lower income community, have no access to a vehicle, and live more than a half a mile away from the grocery store, you live in a food desert.
Try not to miss the bus.
Toni retired from a career in the insurance industry 10 years ago and receives food stamps on the 6th of every month.
I don't think this was an accident, not to build grocery stores in this area because the people here, it's not just about Black people, it's about poor people.
Okay. Toni is one of more than 23.5 million Americans who live in a neighborhood which the USDA calls a food desert. That means they have limited access to healthy, fresh, and affordable food. For Toni, getting groceries requires traveling 2 miles with the help of 2 buses. It takes 40 minutes each way. It's a struggle to get there, especially when you're 71 and have to carry a week's worth of groceries back home without a car. In Washington, more than 80% of food deserts are located in the neighborhoods with the highest poverty rates and where mostly Black residents live. In whiter and wealthier parts of town, there are plenty of big box grocery stores and independently owned supermarkets. But in Southeast DC, leading chains don't feel like there's enough money to be made in those poorer neighborhoods. The higher rate of crime in Southeast is another deterrent. So if you want to buy food in Southeast DC, you generally have to get fast food or go to a convenience store. That leaves 150,000 people in the area in a food desert.
Now we're calling it what it is, food apartheid. It's something that's planned. The desert is natural. It's manufactured by the planet. This is something that's planned. And it's obvious.
Tony buys her food from multiple grocery stores, searching for the best deals. Here she is at Giant, her closest grocery store, trying to find some staples on sale.
There are not a lot of places in the area where I live that I can go and buy food. What I do is I get my bulk when I get my stamps. I run all over the city. Even though the Giant is here, I don't patronize the Giant very often because it's expensive. So I'm running all over the city.
Tony is tired of traveling across the city hunting for food. She wants more healthy food options for everyone in the neighborhood. So she's training to be a community advocate, pressing the DC government to provide incentives that will attract more grocery stores to come here. Her goal is simple.
I've been in Ward 8 21 years, and we have not had a full service supermarket for that entire time. There's always been a break. In my area, I want to see more places for people to shop.
For NPR, I'm Sasha Ann Simons in Washington.
Now, personally, I know a lot of people who are like Miss Tony. I know that there are people who do not have cars. They barely even have money to catch the bus or call a taxi. So a lot of them have to either walk or they have to have someone drive them or they just have to go without. And I think that is very unfortunate. It doesn't make sense to me. It actually hurts my heart to know that there are a lot of people who are similar to Miss Tony who probably can't even do anything about it. For Miss Tony, she's fortunate enough to be able to ride the bus, but she is 71 and she should not have to do all of that. She should be able to just walk 5 minutes to the grocery store, find healthy, affordable options, and then come right back home. She should not have to ride around for 40 minutes to get a week's worth of groceries. But, you know, let's move forward. When access to healthy options are limited, health is affected. Dr. Haval, a cardiologist in Atlanta, Georgia, whose research found that people living in food deserts had a 44% higher risk of having a heart attack compared to those who have easier access to healthier options, also found that when it's challenging to find nutritious food, whether there isn't a grocery store in your neighborhood, you don't have a car, so it's difficult to shop because supermarkets aren't close by, or you can't afford wholesome food, your health can suffer. Alongside this, areas with poor food quality, low access to healthy foods, or more fast food restaurants are associated with obesity and diabetes. A recent study showed that although living in food deserts was associated with decreased fruit and vegetable intake and higher systolic blood pressure, having low income while living in food deserts is associated with higher odds of chronic kidney disease. Additionally, studies have shown that an increased prevalence of convenience stores was associated with a higher incidence of obesity. So you can't really call them convenience stores if they're causing problems. But, I know some of you may be eating something as you watch this presentation, and I hate to burst your bubble, but, I have to provide you some information, and I have some quick facts for you. Junk food psychological effects on the brain, which is junk food consumption can have significant negative psychological effects on the brain, potentially leading to mood disorders, cognitive impairments, and even addiction-like behaviors. Unfortunately, just like an expensive car, your brain can be damaged if you ingest anything other than healthy options. If substances from processed foods get into your brain, the brain has little ability to get rid of them. Diets high in refined sugars, for example, are harmful to the brain. In addition to worsening your body's regulation of insulin, junk food also promotes inflammation and oxidative stress. Multiple studies have found a correlation between a diet high in refined sugars and impaired brain function, and even a worsening of symptoms of mood disorders such as depression. So, if you ever watch the show My 600-Pound Life, the people who eat because they're sad or they eat because they're bored, all of that is starting to make sense, right? Hopefully, it's starting to make sense to you. Regarding chemicals in the brain, serotonin is a neurotransmitter that helps regulate sleep and appetite. They mediate moods. It mediates moods and inhibits pain. Since about 95% of your serotonin is produced in your gastrointestinal tract, and your gastrointestinal I promise I can talk. I promise. And your gastrointestinal tract is lined with 100 million nerve cells or neurons. It makes sense that the inner workings of your digestive system don't just help you digest food, but also guide your emotions. Again, with the My 600-Pound Life. Research has also shown that consuming lots of sugary drinks when you are young could alter brain development. So, unfortunately, for you and I, for you and I, our brain development has been altered. We're not children anymore, and I'm pretty sure you and I have both had a few sodas within our lifetime. Um, you can't go backwards and redo it. We can only move forward with this new information and live a better life. Hopefully. You do you. In the same way as eating food that you are allergic to in the same way that eating food that you're allergic to can inflame your mouth, junk foods can cause a similar reaction in the brain. This is called neural inflammation, and it sets off a self-perpetuating series of events leading to more inflammation that can damage brain cells called neurons. When those neurons are damaged, they seek more of what damaged it in the first place. This makes the body crave more of it, leading to more damage. So, for example, if someone, if you yourself or you know someone who has been intoxicated and you or the person that you know decides to take a shot the next morning in order to get over the hangover because you think it's helping you, it's not doing anything but fueling an addiction. This is what is happening with junk food. You're fueling an addiction. People with damage to the hippocampus report being hungry all the time. And I mention that because the hippocampus has been found to be important in receiving fullness signaling messages from the gut. So, eating a junk food diet can create a vicious cycle of damage to the neurons in the hippocampus, and the damage causes people to eat more and more. So, you see the loop? Do you see the hamster wheel turning? You eat the junk food, you think you're full, or you think you're still hungry, so you eat more junk foods. It's a lot. It's a lot. Junk foods shrink the brain's learning capabilities. This process can be described by the term neuroplasticity, or neurons that fire together, wire together. Junk food laden diets have been shown to reduce neuroplasticity, which is essential for us to form new memories and learn new things rapidly, which is part of the reason why your teachers hated for you to eat in class. No eating in my class, no snacking, no none of that, only water, because they did not want you to alter the way that you're receiving the information that they're trying to give to you. Aside from mental difficulties stemming from poor diets, psychological and social impacts are birthed too. For example, those living in food insecure households showed greater odds of anxiety and depression. The impact of food insecurity on mental health spans beyond individual well-being, extending to societal issues such as poverty cycles and community mental health. While adults and working teens have more control over their consumption, children unfortunately do not. When children become food insecure, they can develop a variety of physical and mental conditions that can affect their ability to concentrate in school. So, like when you give a child ice cream and they're hopping and popping, ripping and running, getting into trouble, that's it, that this is why. because they're experiencing things that are physically altering and mentally altering their ability to sit down and concentrate. In urban food deserts, children face similar barriers as adults. However, children are particularly affected as they are unable to travel for better food options on their own, unless they have a store right up the street from their house that they can walk to with a person. They can't get anywhere on their own. Subsequently, they must rely on their parents' choices, which are often limited to low incomes. Research indicates that a lack of access to nutritious food can lead to lower test results among children from low-income backgrounds. Now, not to sound like a conspiracist, but I have a theory that supports my findings. And my theory is the critical race theory. Critical race theory is an academic framework that examines how race and racism have shaped legal systems and societal structures in the United States. Researcher Bauer analyzed census population and InfoUSA food store data and found that all levels of poverty, predominantly Black census tracts, have the fewest supermarkets, and white tracts have the most, leading to unequal access to fresh, healthy foods. So, like that video about Miss Tony, how they showed you that there are certain areas in DC that have limited access to healthy options and stores, but there are other areas in DC that have more options. This is exactly what it's talking about. It's exactly what I'm talking about here. Black neighborhoods also have a high prevalence of fast food options due to these companies seeking actively particular land use types. National fast food chains such as White Castle have been known to target urban African American neighborhoods by seeking name recognition and brand loyalty. And this is often made easier by the weak retail climate and surplus of low-wage labor fostered by segregation. Critical race theory views food deserts as an outcome of systemic racism and historical policies, such as redlining, which we've already talked about, hopefully you remember that, and neighborhood disinvestment, that have shaped unequal access to resources in communities of color. Critical race theory highlights how race, class, and geography intersect to create compounded disadvantages like higher rates of diet-related illnesses and economic strain. It also challenges colorblind solutions, pointing out that policies that ignore racialized history often fail to address the root causes of these disparities. Social work values such as social justice, service, empowerment, and respect for dignity of all people align closely with the critical race theory. Recognizing the structural roots of food deserts allows social workers to advocate for equitable policy changes, support community-led initiatives like local grocery co-ops or gardens, and ensure that interventions address systemic barriers rather than just individual behaviors. By viewing individuals within the context of their environment, social workers can help communities not only survive but thrive, promoting long-term health and opportunity. Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, so we've talked about the problem and how it affects people, but if you're like myself, you want to know how to create change or intervene or get people involved so that they too can create change for themselves. And these are my suggestions. The first one is one of my favorites. It is a community garden, which is a picture of what I have here. I don't know these people. They're just lovely, aren't they? Community gardens, a systemic review of 53 studies found that community gardeners tend to consume more fruits and vegetables and report lower rates of hypertension and obesity compared to non-gardeners. These gardens also improve psychological wellness, social cohesion, and neighborhood engagement, making them more than just food sources. So basically, when you go to a community garden, you're more inclined to meet people who also reside in that community, and you feel more inclined to take home something that was grown straight from the source. The second one is SNAP, which is what I said that we were going to talk about earlier, but right now. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP is proven, it's a proven safety net. It reduces poverty and food insecurity and is linked with improved health outcomes, especially for those with diet-related chronic illnesses like diabetes or hypertension. So if you know someone with diabetes or hypertension, you should probably refer them to SNAP. Additionally, which is an idea that I'm actually thinking about incorporating for myself, and if I find that one of you decide to steal my idea, I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna sue you. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm not, but I'm joking. Anyway, this next recommendation is the mobile produce markets. So think of ice cream trucks, but fruit, veggie, healthy option trucks. But it'll have a cooler name to that. Anyway, mobile markets improve access to fresh produce and affordability in underserved areas. They've been known to increase fruit and vegetable intake. One pilot in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, saw a 13% rise in veggie consumption. Other studies in Buffalo, New York, showed that mobile markets effectively reached food insecure neighborhoods with relatively low resource investment. County health rankings also highlight how strategic placement, nutrition education, and SNAP, also known as EBT, or I'm sorry, also partnered with EBT, acceptance in mobile markets significantly improve their success. The last recommendation, which is another one of my favorites, which I personally have relation to, is church, school pantries, and community-based distribution. Faith-based and school pantries often meet people where they already are, providing familiarity and trust. Though I did not locate a direct peer-reviewed quote specific to them, broader research on food distribution models, such as mobile markets, demonstrates the effectiveness of using local institutions to improve food access and reduce food insecurity. Now, I say I have a personal affliction, I have a personal love for community gardens and church and school pantries because of my grandmother. She was heavily involved within the community. I mean, almost everybody in my family was, but she specifically was heavily involved. She was creative director for our church that I grew up in. So therefore, I was always helping her with soup kitchens, fish fries, regular food pantries, getting involved in the community, distributing foods that we weren't able to give out during the food kitchens, the fish fries and all that stuff. I thought it was fun. I think that she wanted me to have fun and learn to love being involved within volunteership. And it worked. Now, this next example is something that I still do and I participate in personally, and it is Dayspring Ministries. I have learned about this church and have been going for 3 years, but I have not been involved as I should have been. But recently, within these past couple of months, I have been involved in the gardening ministry, and I really like it. First of all, I like being in the garden. I like fresh produce. I like to feed my body things that are naturally grown, and I just really appreciate learning that my church has a garden. And I'm not trying to convert anyone. I'm not trying to, send you there. But I just really like the fact that they always have community events such as salsa mixers where you pick, these are pictures from the mixer, where you pick uh produce from the garden. Whatever you pick, you can chop it up and put it in your salsa, or you can just take it home. And I just like that they want to make people become more aware of who they are, the fact that they're there, and the fact that they are serving people who are just like me and you. So yes, that is my church, Dayspring Ministries. There are plenty of examples of areas that have band together to help one another escape or eliminate food deserts. For example, in 2013, a full-service supermarket known as Shop and Save opened in the Hill District, a predominantly Black, historically under-resourced Pittsburgh neighborhood that had lacked a quality grocery store for 30 years. Researchers followed residents in the Hill District uh, and compared it before the store opened in 2011 and after in 2014. They explained their observations, which were that they noticed big improvements in residents' perception of access to healthy food after the store opened. They noticed improved diet quality, meaning fewer calories from sugar, solid fats, and alcohol, less sugar overall, options in the store. Neighborhood satisfaction rose notably. They unfortunately did not note any significant changes in body mass index, also known as BMI, or obesity rates overall, but that doesn't mean that the change did not happen. They weren't able to draw up any conclusions about that. They also mentioned improvements in diet and perceptions that were not explained solely by shopping at the new store. They suggested that community investment awareness and related changes may have driven the benefits itself. In conclusion, food deserts are rooted in systemic inequities instead of individual choices. Limited access to healthy foods is tied to higher rates of obesity, hypertension, and chronic disease. Interventions like community gardens, my favorites, SNAP, mobile markets, don't you steal my idea, and food pantries improve health and access. This matter is important, and I believe social workers should care because food access is a core social justice issue tied to health equity. Poor nutrition impacts mental health, child development, and community well-being. Social workers can address systemic barriers, connect clients to resources, and advocate for policy change. And regardless of if you're a social worker or not, I strongly urge you to advocate for policies supporting equitable food access, volunteer with local food initiatives, support programs that bring fresh, affordable food to underserved areas, and work with others to turn food deserts into thriving food oases. This can all make a difference. After all, it costs nothing to care. And if people are what they eat, then what does that say about you if you don't care? Again, I'm Naila, and I thank you for watching. Until next time.